Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a massive, completely invisible digital threat that actually relies entirely on a very common human habit. We're going to break down exactly how credential stuffing works today, how modern account takeovers actually happen behind the scenes, why your data might be at risk, and most importantly, how you can instantly lock down your digital life. So let's dive right in.
So I want to start off with a really quick question, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself here. How many of your passwords are actually different from each other? Like, are you using the exact same password for your email, your favorite shopping site, your bank account, and your social media? Look, if your answer is not many, you are absolutely not alone. The internet asks us to remember way too many passwords, so we naturally kind of cheat to make things easier on ourselves. But here's the catch. This simple everyday act of reusing a password is the exact vulnerability that modern attackers are hunting for.
And that habit of cheating, well, it becomes pretty terrifying when you look at the sheer scale of stolen data out there today. Just let this number sink in for a second. 149 million. Back in August 2026, security researchers stumbled onto a massive database just sitting wide open on the internet. And I mean wide open. It wasn't hidden behind a password, it wasn't encrypted, nothing. It was almost 96 gigabytes of login credentials, holding 149 million stolen usernames and passwords. Literally anyone who looked could find it. Now that number is staggering for sure, but the real danger isn't simply that this one database leaked out.
The real danger is what attackers actually do next. Because when they get their hands on your password from, say, some random obscure website that got breached, they definitely don't just stop there. They treat that leaked password exactly like a spare key left under the front mat. They take that single stolen password and automatically try it against every other account you own. We're talking your bank, your primary email, your crypto wallet. They try it millions of times a second, all over the globe, probably while you're fast asleep. And this highly effective technique? It's called credential stuffing.
To truly grasp how credential stuffing works today, we kind of need to completely reframe how we think about account takeovers. Because when most of us picture getting hacked, we imagine, some cinematic genius in a dark hoodie typing furiously, actively targeting us and trying to guess our password one character at a time. But honestly, that is simply not how it works anymore. Modern account takeover is basically an industrial process. Attackers are not guessing, they're using automated machines that just log in using a correct username and password that was already stolen from somewhere else. If you reuse a password, you essentially handed over the skeleton key to your entire digital life.
Now you might be wondering, where do these massive databases like that 149 million credential leak actually come from in the first place? And sure, sometimes a specific company gets breached, but increasingly they come from what we call info stealers. This is a type of malware that just quietly sits on an affected computer and vacuums up every single typed username and password. So that massive database wasn't just one big dramatic hack. It was essentially an accumulation of these info stealer harvests, quietly gathering up credentials from everyday people over a long period of time.
All right, let's break down the exact mechanics of how this works. It's a very crisp, mechanical four-step process. Step 1 is the harvest. Passwords get stolen in bulk, largely thanks to those info stealers we just talked about. Step 2 is the sale. These stolen credentials instantly become a commodity. They get bundled up and traded on underground markets, literally often for pennies. Step 3 gives the attack its name, the stuffing. The attacker feeds this massive stolen list into automated tools that blast those credentials against hundreds of popular websites all at the exact same time. And finally, step 4, the cash out. Out of those millions of automated tries, a really meaningful percentage actually succeeds, simply because people reuse their passwords. And that success means a compromised account that can be immediately drained or sold off.
Because of this highly automated, relentless process, credential stuffing is actually the #1 attack vector globally right now. It causes roughly 1 in 5 of all data breaches. And why is it so incredibly successful? Well, it essentially boils down to two facts. Humans reuse passwords because it's easy, and machines don't get tired. An attacker's software can try your specific password 10,000 times across 10,000 different sites in the literal blink of an eye.
Let's slow down the pacing for a moment and trace the actual timeline of a stolen password. It is incredibly patient and frankly, a bit cruel. It always starts with the leak. Your info gets caught in a database, maybe months or even years ago. Then comes the quiet period. And this is honestly the most unsettling part. Attackers will just wait in total silence. They sit on that stolen password until you've completely dropped your guard and forgotten you ever even used it on that random site. Then, out of nowhere, comes the attempt. The automated stuffer tries your old reused password, and it works. Finally, you're left with the aftermath, where you are completely locked out of your own life.
And what exactly goes down during that aftermath? Attackers perform what the industry calls the pivot. See, if an attacker uses your reused password to log into your email first, they basically hold the master key. They will immediately jump in and change your recovery settings to completely lock you out. Once you can't get back in, they just use your own email account to hit reset password on everything else, your bank, your crypto accounts, your social media. Before you even have a chance to realize what's happening, your accounts are being completely drained.
I really want to let this thematic point sink in for a second. You are not the target here. You are the collateral damage. If your accounts ever get taken over this way, I want to completely remove any shame or guilt you might feel. You weren't individually hunted down by some mastermind, you weren't outsmarted, you were simply caught in the crossfire of a mindless, automated machine simply because of a reused password. Look, it happens to the absolute best of us. But here's the silver lining. Because it is just a mechanical, automated process, that means we can completely stop it.
And that brings us to the really good news. This is actually one of the easiest security problems on Earth to fix. The ultimate solution? A password manager. A password manager instantly and totally kills the threat of credential stuffing. It generates a super long, random, utterly unique password for every single website you visit, and then it just remembers them all for you. You literally only have to remember one master password. When every single password you have is unique, a leak on one obscure gaming forum is totally useless to an attacker trying to pivot into your bank account.
So let's run through a really quick, accessible checklist to stop credential stuffing in its tracks. First, get and use a password manager. Second, change your most important passwords today. Start with your email and your banking, and make sure they are unique. Third, turn on two-factor authentication, or 2FA. This puts a crucial second lock on every digital door, so even if they steal your password, they still can't get in. Fourth, check a legitimate site like Have I Been Pwned to see if your email is already floating around in a leaked database somewhere. And fifth, just keep an eye out for warning signs, like weird login alerts or password resets that you definitely didn't request.
Now, looking a little bit toward the future, the tech industry is totally aware that passwords, which by the way are literally an invention from the 1980s, are fundamentally broken. That's exactly why we are rapidly moving toward passkeys as the new global standard. By letting you log in with just your face, your fingerprint, or your device, we entirely eliminate the typed password altogether. And think about it, if there is no password, there is absolutely nothing for info stealers to vacuum up and absolutely nothing for attackers to stuff. Passkeys are going mainstream incredibly fast, and they're leading us to a much brighter, much safer digital future. But hey, until passkeys are literally everywhere, the responsibility is still squarely in our hands. So I'm going to leave you with this final, absolutely vital action item. Take 5 minutes today, turn on 2FA for your main email, and please go change that one skeleton key password you've been reusing since 2019. Transforming yourself from the easiest target on the internet into a virtually impossible one takes almost no time at all. So the question is, are you going to leave your spare key under the mat for another night, or are you going to change the locks today? Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer. Now go secure your accounts.